So, Mr. Milov, what do you think would be consequences for Russian economy after they stop the gas for some countries?
Extremely difficult consequences, but they will probably not surface immediately. It will take some time for all these measures to get working. I think you understand that there are two major developments going on. First, the sanctions imposed by the Western governments, and second, here are the mass withdrawals of international companies from the Russian market who are important suppliers of technology, component parts for manufacturing, consumer products, logistics, insurance, and so on. So the effects of all this process will not be visible immediately, because still at the same time we have some, warehouse stock. Some sanctions have the waivers, like they do not go into effect immediately. Some of the contractual relations go on for a few months. But I expect a very significant downgrading of consumer standards and very significant unemployment in high added value, primarily manufacturing sectors, because they are heavily dependent on imported component parts. So I think by fall these effects will be visible. Sharp drop in living standards, in consumer standards, plus the rise of unemployment because of the shutdown of enterprises and supply chains. So I think consequences will be something bigger than we ever seen in the past 30 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
So do you think that the consequences are already felt inside Russia?
They failed to some extent, but again, there is some sort of damper mechanism right now, because sanctions are not effective immediately. The most painful thing, the withdrawal of key suppliers of technology and component parts, is also gradual. It's not immediate. Some of the contractual relationships are respected even by governments imposing sanctions, so they are allowed to continue for like 2, 3, few more months down the road. So, yes, there are significant effects felt at the moment, because if you just Google in the Russian segment deficit of spare parts, deficit of server equipment for digital infrastructure, deficit of tires, deficit of motor oils, whatever, you will see that there are significant problems across the board, but on a macro scale they are not visible yet, but they will be in the next coming few months.
And my last question, what is your forecast about Putin's government, and also what do you think will happen to the energy map? What will be the changes?
Well, energy map will be redrawn forever, because there is no return for major consumption of Russian oil and gas for Europe in observed decades. And I think in Russia, in the previous few years, we have been discussing a risk of green transition as a major killer of our oil and gas exports for decades to come. But we thought it will happen like something post-2030 and so on. But it's happening much faster now, and there's no comeback. Because there will not be like a pause of 5 or 10 years, and then Europe will continue to come back and buy more Russian oil and gas. There will be no such thing. There will be no comeback. So we will have to invent a totally new economy, which is not based on oil and gas export revenues from Europe. Now, what will happen to Russia politically, that's a difficult question, because Putin's system maintains a very firm grip over the society through repression, through control over media, through control over strategic sectors of the economy. So in this environment, it's really difficult to bring about political changes. But on a positive note, I think Putin's system had suffered such a severe structural blow after everything, sanctions, attrition of the armed forces on the battlefield, and many other pressures that Putin is currently experiencing. I think he took too much weight onto his shoulders that he just simply cannot handle. When and how we will see cracks in the system, that is difficult to diagnose, because the system is also non-transparent. But I think in the medium, longer term, the system will not be able to survive all this pressure that is facing right now.